Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I fucking love him. I can't get enough of him.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robot here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole.
They're a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
Oh, it's a new month. Has it ever felt so good with respect to Ken Flo's birthday in the month of May to rip up the calendar page for May? I saw some tweet that said it feels like May 43rd. It felt like May 44th yesterday. It is Monday, June 1, 2020. One of 5 episodes coming your way at the very least this month of the Anik and Florian podcast, iteration number 252. Ken Flo went to the barbershop in Los Angeles, folks. So if you're listening on iTunes, it's time to pause your phone, go on YouTube. Wow. I mean, just making everybody else in the room look less handsome today.
It's worth the subscribe button, no doubt about it. Check out the hair. It's cut finally. It was, honestly, it was probably the longest it's been in like maybe 20 something years. So it was kind of became this game. How long can I get it? And then I was like, all right, I just need to just trim and look like a normal human being again.
And there's no white hair there. See, my identical twin brother hasn't had a haircut in over a year. It's beyond his shoulders. And it's like white lettuce in there, right? A little white cabbage or whatever it's called. The coleslaw stuff. See, you have none of that. No.
There's some follicles that I got to pluck every once in a while, John. I'll be honest with you. All
right, so a lot to get to today. UFC Fight Night, Woodley versus Burns is in the can, and Gilbert Burns is the story on a Monday. Of course, Jon Jones making headlines. So let's not waste any time. Let's get to those headlines.
Headlines.
It's time for headlines.
I have some very urgent and important breaking news.
Headlines.
On the Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
All right, so Gilbert Burns in his first UFC main event, Ken Flo, comes up large, 6th consecutive win overall, but none bigger than this one. Unanimous decision winner over the former welterweight king Tyron Woodley, 50-44 times 2, and a 50-45 from the dissenting judge. Huge performance from Durinho, and I don't want to sit here and say not surprised, motherfuckers, right? But I felt like he was a live underdog. I felt like his current form and recent activity could be big signs going in. So let's start with Gilbert before we get to Tyron. What'd you make of his performance over 25 minutes?
I thought it was awesome. Listen, you don't get a much better start than that against a former champion. I thought that was definitely a 10-8 round, so I thought those two judges were correct. Getting hurt like he did, he definitely froze Tyron for about a second there, ended up taking him down right into the mount. I thought it was dominant. I thought he looked like the veteran fighter. He looked certainly like the guy that was hungrier and prepared. Tyron, to me, even just the start of that fight, and I love the guy, but his eyes just didn't seem like he was in it. I don't know, man. I thought this was a tough fight for Tyron as far as, where his motivation is at, the fact that he's been out of the octagon for a long time. Obviously, Gilbert was coming into this fight with a tremendous amount of momentum, but he just looked like he was firing on all cylinders, just looked better everywhere against Tyron, and kind of made it look like Tyron was the guy who was kind of a little bit newer to the scene. And Gilbert was just ready, fired up, and again, just very dominant.
This is a very good team with good coaches, Henry Hooft and Kami Barzini and Greg Jones, the wrestling coach, and Kamaru Usman and all the different Vicente Luque in the corner of Gilbert Burns. But when you transition from 3-round UFC contender to 5-round main event fighter, is there anything that you read into that he was able to sustain it over 25 minutes and maybe didn't get the finish because his opponent wasn't all that willing over the final 15 minutes or so?
Well, listen, I think all the hard work that Gilbert's been putting into his training has certainly paid off. I think the fact that he's become so active in the last year or so in the UFC means that he's staying in the gym or should be staying in the gym at all times. And it looks like he's definitely doing that. I mean, it looked like he just went for a little light jog for that fight. He could have looked like he could have gone another 5 hard rounds, looked to be in tremendous shape. And again, you mentioned Kamaru Usman, you mentioned Vicente Luque, which are two other very good welterweights who he has the opportunity of training with every single day.
Yeah.
Having that, and also I'm sure gaining some confidence from training with the welterweight champion and getting a lot of feedback and intel on that fight between Kamaru Usman and Tyron Woodley, I think really aided him in this fight as well.
And look at all these guys, Flo, who have stayed loyal to Henry Hooft, right? And who have found that head coach. It's not always easy to find the guy. And, you know, maybe you found your guy in Firas Zahabi later in your career than you would have liked. Who knows? But congratulations to Gilbert Burns. I mean, the world's in front of him now as far as this welterweight division is concerned. I guess the fact that his teammates, the champion, works against him a little bit. Jorge Masvidal would seem to be the worthy number one contender. So assuming that Masvidal-Usman is the fight that gets made, that would leave Leon Edwards in need of a fight. So I think there would be a lot of motivation for a Leon Edwards-Gilbert Burns main event. I hate to pluck off a contender, right? Because I think Leon Edwards certainly seems title shot worthy to me. What are your thoughts on what the immediate future might hold for Burns after win number 6 in a row?
Yeah, you know, not that rankings mean everything these days, but I would imagine that Gilbert would probably be around number 4, probably the number 4th ranked guy in the division after this fight. I believe he was 6 coming into that fight against Tyron, and I would put him around number 4. And now, listen, I like a fight against either Leon Edwards or Colby Covington. I think those are two fights that make a lot of sense. I think that he probably matches up a little bit better against Leon Edwards, perhaps, but I like both those fights. Right now, Gilbert Burns is a tough guy to bet against. I think he's getting a tremendous amount of experience. He's gaining confidence with each and every fight. He's going to be a hard guy to stop no matter what. And I'm also curious to see how that progresses if Kamaru Usman remains champion, which is a strong possibility of how they approach that moving forward, obviously being friends and training partners. But couldn't be happier for Gilbert, a guy who is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion and now chasing a world championship in the UFC.
It really is incredible. He's got his sons training in the garage like warriors.
Little
I should show my
too,
daughters that, you know?
Yeah.
Get on your fucking bike, honey. You see what these goddamn children are doing in their father's garage? We can make this a lot harder on you, ladies.
Exactly.
So the other side of this is Tyron Woodley. And whenever fighters win or lose, there's somebody who wants to hate on whatever they're doing, right? And some people want to denigrate this Gilbert Burns win. And I'm not suggesting that he's absolutely top tier class of the welterweight division, but some still suggest that Gilbert Burns is maybe on that second tier, still looking up at guys like Usman and Masvidal. Woodley's the other side of this. 38 years old, seemed risk averse to me. I don't know how much the first round had to do with that. I didn't watch all of what Woodley had to say after the fact, but didn't seem to want to pull the trigger even when that was the only recipe for a win. What were your overall thoughts on Woodley's performance?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Tyron really hasn't been the guy who has gone forward looking for a knockout. He's more the guy that he allows you to come towards him and then he counters you with a big shot. If you are really aggressive, Tyron kind of seems to shine in that light like he did against Darren Till, for example. And it just seemed like he was really relying on that right hand, and I think he expected to try to land a big shot against Gilbert, and that never really came. And if he did land a good right hand, it really didn't have much of an effect on Gilbert. So I think he kind of went in there looking a little bit more like a one-trick pony than I've ever seen him in previous fights. His footwork looked a little bit off, but more than anything, John, more than anything, and again, this is tough for me to say, but I don't know if Tyron looked like he really, really wanted to be there. I think we can tell when you see a fighter's in it, and even if he's losing, okay, and that happens. You know, he's fighting elite guys. You know, you have your good days and your bad days, but you can certainly tell when your eyes are in it. It didn't seem like he was in it against Kamaru Usman, and he didn't seem like he was really in it against Gilbert Burns. Now, this is not to take away anything from Gilbert Burns, but for me, that's not the Tyron that we've all kind of come to see, especially, you know, as he was coming up to become a champion and when he was defending his belt against some tough guys. So I don't know, man. I think that's a sign to me. If I was talking about anybody else, I would say that's when you really got to think about whether you want to pursue this as a career, because the professional fight game, it is brutal,
Yeah.
man. And if you are not into it, you will get hurt. I don't want to see that amongst anybody, let alone a friend and a guy that I've worked with in Tyron Woodley.
And I guess to my eyes, and you hit on a number of good points, he looked conditioned. You know, he didn't quit
Looked in
over
shape.
25 minutes, but
Yeah.
is it the right training? You know, is the hunger really there, the championship hunger that Gilbert Burns has, right? Because Gilbert Burns believes on any Saturday night that he's the best welterweight in the world. And I don't know if Woodley's self-belief took a hit in that Kamaru Usman fight, but he wasn't the same that night. And this was sort of an inactive, uneven effort, especially against a guy that he was about a 2-1 favorite to beat.
John, this is the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and your focus has to be very singular. This is a game where everyone's trying to get better, and everyone's planning to defeat you. Tyron Woodley was the world champion in the welterweight division for a good amount of time.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing, but it's also a bad thing because everybody is looking for ways to beat you. And every time you have a fight, people are looking for weaknesses and looking for what was successful and what was not. They should be anyway, right? So when Tyron is at this stage, he needs to continue to get better. And if his focus isn't on fighting and training all the time, and you're just going into training camps when you have a fight, which is something that I never understood as a fighter.
Right.
Like, I didn't even understand what a camp was. I'm like, what do you mean you're going into camp? Aren't you fucking training all the time?
Right.
Are you a professional or not? I don't understand that. But anyways, it's way too dangerous. It's crazy to me that, a fighter doesn't stay training all the time and isn't getting better. A tremendous athlete like a Tyron Woodley, more than anything else, should be getting better all the time. And I saw almost a decline there. And that's hard to see, and it's hard to say.
Right. And I think, too, when you talk about other professional athletes in the NBA, given maybe what those salaries are, it's like you damn well better be working out 330 days a year. And that's just as a Celtics fan, right?
Sure.
So there's a lot of layers to that. But for Tyron Woodley, I think there's going to be a lot put into his next fight now, right? Because now he's looking at this 2-fight losing streak. He doesn't seem to be walking away. But at 38 years old, can that hunger and drive and energy all return? And I do think there are winnable fights in that top 15, but if you're looking for easy outs at 170 pounds, and Tyron's a main event fighter, a former champion, had the belt for a long time, so he's probably looking at main events, big fights. Even the Covington fight could come his way, so we shall see. But we congratulate Gilbert Burns. Quickly on the co-main event, Ken Flo, Augusto Sakai over Blagoy Ivanov by split decision. So 2 points for me out of this fight. I like Sakai. I'm intrigued to see what he can do moving forward in the heavyweight division. Not the tightest midsection, but I'm excited to see what he can do. But the fence grab, man, like I don't have that many pet peeves in mixed martial arts, but fence grabs to me are not penalized the way they need to be. And I don't know if the referee didn't have the right angle here or what, but this fence grab should take a 1.5 away. TJ, come at me, right, Ken Flo? Certainly should have been a point deduction. And that would have changed things for Blagoy Ivanov as far as the scorecards. Yes. So what were your thoughts on the ill-fated fence grab there?
John, no doubt about it. I mean, it really could have changed the whole fight. That was quite possibly the determining factor on who was going to win that fight. We can't say that no matter what, Blagoy Ivanov would have, kept him on the mat after that throw or whatever. But I mean, that was a takedown that looked like really was going to happen. It was beautiful timing by Ivanov, and Sakai holding on to that fence, man.
Yeah.
I guess he had the right angle. The referee wasn't able to see it, but him able to keep that, keep the fight standing really changed the whole trajectory of the fight. It's what won him the fight. Kudos to him for doing that as far as standing up for the remainder of that fight. But yeah, that was an illegal fence grab that should have warranted a point deduction for Sakai. But I'm not going to be mad at it because I picked Sakai to win. I told you, Ian Parker. I told you.
Hey, what do you think about Sakai? What do you think about Sakai?
I'll say this. I'll say this.
I'll say this.
He moves pretty well for a big guy. He's sneaky fast. I think he's got some decent athleticism. I was most impressed with his kicks. But if you are a giant heavyweight, you got to learn how to punch. It was all arm punches. He's not generating any force from his feet, from the floor. He's not really generating force with his legs, with his hips, with his rotation. It's all arm punches. If he can improve that, if he can go out and get a boxing coach to really teach him how to punch, people might be in trouble. This is a guy who can maybe go far in the heavyweight division. So I think he has a lot of potential. He moves well. It's not like he's not capable. But he's got to clean up the fence grabs and clean up that boxing.
And there are a lot of more subtle examples of fence grabs where fighters get away with it, and it effectively changes the whole complexion of the fight. If you see, there you go. Yeah. If you get away with one fence grab that prevents a takedown and you win a round because of it or stay upright because of it, it can be a huge deal. So, all right. So Augusto Sakai, we'll see how it goes for him, but off to a 4-0 start, I believe, in the UFC heavyweight division. Not too shabby there. Big win for Billy Q. Did you see that fight with Billy Quarantillo and Spike Carlisle? Had to be the fight of the night. I didn't see the bonuses after the fact, but what a hell of a fight, and I thought the rightful guy won, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I don't know, Billy, but watching that fight, all I kept saying is if he pulls this off, he is going to learn so much from this fight and gain so much confidence. This is one of those fights that if you watch and you're a new mixed martial arts fan, and you see Carlisle, you're like, this guy is a savage. He's going to kick that other little dude's ass. This is the beauty of martial arts, is when you are focused and when you are determined and when you are skillful, that will be the difference. Billy, man, I was clapping out there. What a fight. It was nonstop action. That guy Carlisle is not only like a kind of a caveman, but he is tough as nails, man. That was a tremendous fight. I don't think they stopped actually fighting for any second of that whole fight. It was awesome. And again, Billy made some mistakes in that fight, but he's going to learn a lot from that one. He gained about 5 to 6 fights of experience in that one 15-minute fight. It was awesome.
I agree. And Cody Merrow, print the T-shirts, ABC, always bet on cardio. If you're out there and you're gambling, right, you want to be on the cardio guy because Billy Q has it in droves, and certainly that's what carried him over the final 2 rounds. And sign me up to see Spike Carlisle the next time he competes. I mean, both of those guys, but we'll have Billy Q on the podcast coming up because he's a friend of Ray Longo. Speaking of which, let's get to the Ray Longo minute.